This is a video demonstration of the Oz Primary Flight Display for an instrument approach to runway 36 at KIXD Airport. Once we've completed the flight, we'll do a quick post-flight analysis and then a conclusion. In order to watch this video and see all the fine details on the display, we recommend that you change your video settings to 720p, and you can do so on the bottom right of the YouTube toolbar. The first waypoint in the flight plan is NAPFI. We're currently 3.5 nautical miles away from the waypoint, which is off to the left of the nose of the aircraft, as shown by the GPS-style waypoint symbol. In addition, the waypoint is drawn with an angular deflection below the horizon, indicating that the waypoint target altitude is below our current aircraft altitude. In order to fly to the waypoint at the correct altitude, we simply place the nose ring over the waypoint symbol. As we arrive at the waypoint, it will be centered on the screen and level with the horizon. In addition, the target star layer, also set at 3,100 feet and shown in magenta, will also be level with the horizon. This provides two independent graphical cues that, when aligned with the horizon, reinforce that the aircraft is at the correct altitude. Some slight wind disturbance there. We're now 0.1 nautical miles in front of NAPFI. As we start to pass over the waypoint, we'll see the waypoint symbol move off to the edge of the screen and return to the center in orange. Remember, orange symbology means that the graphical element's behind the aircraft, and we'll perform a standard rate level turn to the right to Anquam by placing the bent wings on the horizon. Since Anquam is at our current altitude, we see no angular deflection relative to the horizon. You might be wondering what that green line is that appeared on the bottom of the screen as we passed NAPFI. That's the extension of the runway center line and will show up once we are within 30 degrees of the runway center line and 20 nautical miles from the touchdown zone. Looking at the end of the green line on the right, we see a small depiction of the airport symbol, which is the standard symbol you'd find on your sectional chart. As we get within 10 nautical miles of the airport symbol will be replaced with a drawing of the ends of the runway threshold. Currently, we're flying the GPS waypoints on the GPS approach to runway 36. As we get closer to the waypoint Anquam, we'll see that the localizer needle starts to move to the center of the screen, at which point we will start a standard rate turn to the right towards Jikla to keep the localizer needle centered. At this point, I will switch from a GPS approach to an ILS approach down to decision height at runway 36. Now we can see the localizer needle starting to walk towards the center of the screen, so I'll execute a standard rate turn to the right. Notice also that Jikla is drawn below the horizon and indicates a transition to a lower altitude of 2,700 feet, which matches the approach plate on the top right of the screen. This is also the initial altitude for the ILS approach. I will adjust the target star layer down to 2,700 feet, the heading bug to reflect the runway heading of 356 degrees, and because it's a heading in front of the aircraft, it should be in green, and the speed diamond to 90 knots for our approach airspeed. I'll also reduce the power as we slow down the aircraft and extend the first notch of flaps. And as the flaps come down, watch the bent wings as they redraw themselves to reflect the configuration change of the aircraft. And cue in the flaps now. Currently on our flight plan, we're between Anquam and Chicla. Looking at the approach plate, we can see we're somewhere between here, and we're still descending down to 2,700 feet. Simultaneously, we can see that the speed stick relative to the target diamond shows us we're slightly above our target airspeed of 90 knots, which is confirmed by the persistent value on the bottom left of the screen, which says we're at 92 knots relative to the magenta target, which is set to 90. And now we're on our target altitude. Notice also that the end of the runway center line in green has changed from the standard airport symbol on a sectional chart to looking like the approach end of the runway. As we approach Chicla, we will intercept the glide slope at 2,700 feet. Once the glide slope becomes centered on the screen, all I have to do is pitch the nose of the aircraft down to maintain the top of the nose ring tangent to the horizon. This means the aircraft is following a standard 3-degree glide slope and will keep the glide slope needle extremely well centered throughout the approach. We will also reset the target star layer to the ILS decision height of 1,266 feet. This will provide us with a clear reminder as we're coming into land as to when we should look out the window. Simultaneously, I'm going to try to keep the localizer needle centered on the screen by placing the nose ring over the airport runway symbol. You can see that the nose ring is drawn slightly to the left of center, indicating our wind drift, which is a direct crosswind blowing us from the right to the left. This crosswind is also confirmed by the wind vector arrow drawn on the top of the heading scale and by the persistent value on the bottom left of the screen, which tells us the winds right now are 10 knots at a heading of 035 degrees. Because Oz uses the full height and width of the screen to draw the localizer and glide slope needles 1/4 from the center of the screen in either the vertical or the horizontal direction represents 1 dot on the standard CDI indicator. This is the equivalent requirement for an airline transport pilot rating. As you can see, maintaining this level of performance becomes almost a trivial task using the Oz display. Slight wind shear as we get closer to the ground. Our airspeed is right on target, and the glide slope and localizer needles are perfectly centered. We can also see we're coming up on our decision height star layer. And we're now at our decision height. We can see the runway, so we'll extend our second notch of flaps, and we'll proceed down to the runway. Winds 9 at 49, clear to land runway 36. We're now aiming for the touchdown zone of the runway and slowly bringing back the power down to idle as we cross over the numbers. And pitching back to execute our flare. Here is a post-flight analysis of our approach into runway 36. You can see we just passed the waypoint Anquam, where we're descending down now to 2,700 feet until we get to Jikla. As we get to Jikla, we're going to follow the glide slope and localizer needle down to the center line of the runway. And you can see we are doing so quite well until we ultimately touch down at the end of the runway. This concludes a series of tutorials on the Oz primary flight display. The next step is for you to visit our website at www.fly-esky.com. Download our free Oz simulator and compare it against the standard analog steam gauges or Garmin G1000 that comes with Flight Simulator. What you'll find is that the Oz display is significantly easier to use. It will reduce your pilot workload, and it will eliminate having to do any form of scan.